Kata for the sound of the bell. Mind calm, body at ease, breathing quiet, sentiment benevolent. Dharma friends, sitting still in vital silence, wanting nothing. We practice eco-Buddhism together. The sound of the temple bell booms for all to cease from conflict. May the way of Buddha usher in the dawn of non-violent global village forever. Here is the after sound of the bell. Thunder of silence, light after Dharma rain. Om Amoga Vairocana Mahamudra Mani Padme Jvala Pravartaya Om.
Please stand and join me in chanting the three messages. So we will take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, and Sino-Korean, in keeping with our Korean and Buddhist tradition, and then in English. So please throw your voice in, even though you may not know the words. If you've not been here before, it is our practice when we're doing the three refuges first to bring our attention to the soles of the feet, feeling yourself connected to the earth beneath you, and then to bring right and left sides of the body together in this gesture we call Kwakchong, a sincere heart. I go for refuge to the Buddha.
I go for refuge to the Buddha.
And resolve with all beings.
And resolve with all beings.
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment.
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment.
And realize the great way.
And realize the great way.
I go for refuge to the Dharma.
I go for refuge to the Dharma.
And resolve with all beings.
And resolve with all beings.
I will penetrate the teaching.
I will penetrate the teachings.
And uncover oceans of wisdom.
And uncover oceans of wisdom.
I go for refuge to the Sangha.
I go for refuge to the Sangha.
And resolve with all beings.
And resolve with all beings.
I will seek peace and happiness for the many.
I will seek peace and happiness for the many.
And transform this world into Buddha land unimpeded.
And transform this world into Buddha lands unimpeded.
please return to your places for another shorter period of meditation. Please join me in some mindful stretching as an end to our meditation practice. Please sit comfortably. Oh, good morning, everyone. How's my volume? Okay, good. So my name is Ma'u, and I'm one of the priests who live here at the temple. I'm curious how many people are here for the very first time today? Okay, quite a few of you. Welcome. Thanks for coming. For those of you who are regular members, you may have noticed that we've not had Sunday service for 2 weeks in a row now. So what's been going on is we had our summer retreat and summer meetings. So we had actually about 40 people staying here at the temple, coming from all of our temples, practicing together, and then having some great Dharma discussions. So during the summer retreat, we always keep silence for 5 days. That is at least our aspiration. We're not always successful. And then just a couple days ago, well, just ending yesterday, we had an overnight meditation class, and we kept silence for that as well. So this topic of silence is something I'd like for us to explore today. There's a lot of silence associated with the Zen tradition. So what happens when you very first come to the temple, very first come to the Sunday service? We ask you to sit here in silence for 25 minutes during meditation class. And then you hear this Bhagavata that talks about Dharma friends sitting still in vital silence. And then later on, you hear thunder of silence, light after Dharma rain. So I was looking for examples in the scriptures of silence, and it is not addressed so directly. But if you look around at Buddhist temples, you'll notice that this is a very important part of our practice. As we begin to explore this topic, I want to bring it back to everyday life. And I have a question for you all, and we're going to pass the microphone around as we begin to understand silence. I want you to give me some examples of when are you comfortable with silence and when are you not comfortable with silence. Okay, so who will be the microphone passing before you talk about?
That can be a microphone passing.
Okay. So just raise your hand and Wagamak will bring the microphone to you.
I can start off with an example because I participated in the Dharma student meetings and the retreat. And I found it pretty easy to keep silence during the retreat, except during the work times when we had to communicate because we were working on projects around the temple. And then during the Dharma student meetings, we were also asked to keep silence. And I found it a lot more difficult then because I wanted to meet all the Dharma students. I wanted to get to know them and talk to them. Some of them are coming from Chicago and New York City and Mexico City. So it's interesting that I took it back to the comparing mind, like when my mind was just content with silence, it was easy to keep silence. But when I was comparing it to this opportunity to get to know the other Dharma students better, that's when it was difficult for me. Who else has a comment? Ryan.
I suppose my comments are very much similar as to what you just said. I know one example of when silence is easy to keep comes to mind. Say I'm sitting in a library, say I'm studying something. I think the silence is easy to keep then because I'm using the silence. I'm making use of it. It's something that's part of what I'm there for, is the silence. I can contrast that with, say, a time when I'm waiting anxiously for important news. Say a letter is coming in the mail, or there's a ruling or a judgment to be made, and I'm waiting home. That now the silence is sort of in the way. There's some very non-silent thing that I intend to use instead. And so I suppose the comfort or discomfort I have with the silence is whether I intend to use it or not, whether I find that silence useful or skillful toward my needs. And in that sense, the silence is no different from many other things. Anything I find useful is very easy to get rid of. Anything I find obstructive, I have a lot of aversion towards.
I silence.
I'm trying.
I can also speak pretty loud though. Okay. I find, this is not really difficult, but silence can sometimes signal need for action. Like, wait a minute, my 3-year-old is downstairs and he's being way too quiet. He just potty trained, so when he's off hiding somewhere being very quiet, that's my signal. Uh-oh, I might remind help. And there's the silence, yes, there's the silence where you know, not really the silence, like the distance between people who aren't talking. There's a lot happening even though it's silent. And maybe it feels like there's a relation, it feels like there's not much of a relationship happening, but actually there's a pretty intense relationship happening. So I do have that in my life right now where there's a family member and we're not speaking. And that not speaking is very loud for me often. And so I do find that quiet in my own mind helpful to cultivate more compassion, to be in that silence.
I find when I don't talk that there are a lot of noises that I don't pay attention to. It might be other people talking, or it might be just the wind, or it might be who knows what. But things that I don't pay attention to. So what I enjoy in my silence is paying attention to the other non-silence. The hard time I have in being silent is when someone else is saying something or doing something that I don't like. And my judgment wants to tell them that they're not doing it right or they should do it differently. So I have to really bite my tongue in those circumstances.
I was just thinking, just need to be comfortable being silent around people that I'm comfortable with. I was just thinking about this joke that my grandma and grandpa used to have. They'd be like out in a restaurant together, and they'd look around and see like the couples on their first dates, and people just get to know each other, and how much they're talking. We know that people have been together for a while, they can, they kind of quiet down around each other. And they have this joke where they go back and forth and just mouth numbers at each other. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But yeah, I think it's interesting. When you feel like somebody gets you already, you don't need to fill up all that sound space. But when you feel a little insecure, like you really need to manage that person's impression of you. It always seems like I am so.
Maybe just 1 or 2 more examples if anyone has them. Two.
I think a setting like this is so useful. It's just everyone else is silent here, so it's easy to be silent as well. But just by myself, maybe like laying in bed or just like sitting on a couch or something, I find it very hard to be. I'm silent like externally, but internally I feel like there's a lot going on, and I find it easy to distract myself with maybe like reading about social media or YouTube or something. Which is silent somehow, but also like it's really not silent. I'm still filtering other people's thoughts in. So I don't know. I'm just by myself, not like doing anything. That's when I find it hard to be silent.
I struggle a lot with monkey chatter in my brain. And when I'm taking care of the garden, it melts into what I'm doing and stops. And when I'm taking care of myself, it is incessantly loud.
So thank you for sharing. I think these are great examples. As I worked with this topic, I came up with several categories of silence. And this is moving us toward, well, what's so different about silence in Buddhism? But here's the kind of categories I came up with. The first is silence can be considered absence of sound. But as many of you have brought up, there's still a lot of mind chatter going on when there is an absence of sound. Another example is oppressive silence. So have you heard the expression, children should be seen but not heard? So you can extend this to groups that have been maybe discriminated against in our society. So there is this kind of oppression or fear, and you can feel ignored, isolated, this kind of thing. Third example, restless silence. Often associated with worry, thinking about what I need to do in the future, immediately wanting to get up and go and do those things, as opposed to just sitting still and being present with what is. Our founder, Samu Sunam, had this term nourishing silence. And so when he taught an overnight meditation class, he talked about, he was saying, feel the power of silence. Silence is healing. It creates space. And the power of meditation comes from silence. So all of us are here having this meditation experience. And there's a power that we can tap into. And then we have this term thundering silence. We heard that in the Morning Bell Gata. Thundering silence, what is that? And that implies that silence can be energetic, empowered. Something that we can, again, I think of this term as energetic silence. Stillness. So our true mind, if you look at the Platform Sutra and some other Buddhist scriptures, it talks about this fundamental mind, or true mind, being silent of all words and concepts. So that's a very deep kind of silence. And then a last example I might offer is interconnected silence. When we're together in a retreat, there's something special that happens if we're all silent together. And I think earlier it was mentioned that, well, when all of us sitting here together, then silence is easier. When we, yesterday during the overnight meditation class, we all walked silently over to breakfast. And Pasadi was there, she was helping to prepare the meal. And she said that when we came in, there was something special. She could tell that there was a special we look like a group being bonded together in this silent way. So these later examples are more what we mean by noble silence. So we can look at noble silence. When we come to the temple, we want to cultivate noble silence, and it's an intentional quiet that's really aimed at giving us a chance to calm and quiet our minds and to reflect deeply. Have you ever observed somebody who's truly quiet? And I'm sure you've encountered some people like this in your life. And it's very inspiring because it's more than just, they're just quiet with their whole body, quiet how they move around. There's this sense of stillness that it feels very sort of accepting and healing. So this is what we mean by noble silence, and it's something that we're trying to cultivate here at the temple. So now I want to engage you in a little bit of this experience of noble silence. And we're going to use sound as a gateway to get to the noble silence. So go ahead and sit a little bit formally in a meditation posture. And now listen to the sound of the bell. Close your eyes. Now listen as long as possible. Bring the bell to your neck. Now breathe. Begin to listen to the sound within this room. Infants and very young children are able to hear way more sounds than adults. Because throughout our lives, throughout our adulthood, we have learned to tune things out so that we listen only to specific things. So now, like, open up your hearing and see what it is you can hear in this room or outside the building. And because words, man, just for a minute, see how many sounds you can hear in this room. Shift your awareness now to the sounds within your own body. A sound to the breath. to the heartbeat. And I move my head, I can hear bones. So please listen to the sound of your own body. Now begin to trace that whole sound to your hearing of nature. This is a koan. What is your hearing nature? What is it like before words and concepts? Bring your awareness back to the present with the sound of the bell. So now I'd like to pass the microphone again. And if you could share a little about your experience, what you heard, and whether you had sort of an experience of being in touch with this noble silence.
I found myself really tuning into the sort of musical aspects of non-musical things, and that was really cool. The rhythm, particularly the fan, but then I began to sense the cars outside in the plane, and just movement as almost like really subtle musical tones.
I come from a family that has a lot of hearing impairments, so hearing is something that I don't do a lot of. But the thing that my family has always talked about never hearing is the birds, and I was able to hear the birds just now. I mean, mine isn't as bad as everybody else's, but it was really nice to just finally hear that for once.
I I was thinking about noble silence as silence with intention and silence with a purpose outside of just being sort of incidental. I think sometimes emotions get attached to silence, just like sort of in my day-to-day life, like I can be silent when I'm focusing on work, or like as was mentioned before, I can be silent in a relationship when there is tension. But this time, focusing on the concept of silence and the concept of a hearing self, just brought a flavor of intentionality to the silence that I don't usually taste, if that makes sense.
I just noticed the pattern of the building, the machinery of the building, and the pattern to it, almost like you said, the musicality. That there was this pattern, and after a while, I started thinking of the building as sort of a creature or something that was, expressing itself through this sound.
Well, for me was interesting because I realized when I tried to hear the external noise, it was like easier. But when you said you feel inside your sounds, it was pretty difficult for me to identify anything in addition to my breath. So it makes me compare the external world. We always listening others, listening everything, but normally we are not listening ourselves.
I feel like over the last several years, silence has become my main mentor as a place to quiet my mind from all the things I think other people are expecting of me or needing from me, and to just listen to myself. And then I feel like there's a greater power helping me settle into that.
I was struck by it happened with the bell, and then again with cars, and then again with my heartbeat. There is this space in between hearing something and not hearing something, where I felt like I couldn't hear it in my ears, but I could still feel it in my body.
I'm a little loud, so.
Okay.
You're good. Just listening to everybody and their examples and things like that, it just, it's really remarkable how different silence is and how many forms it takes. Because I think of silence to be very violent, a lot of times. And so it's just amazing to me that, like, almost like when I say violent, I think of like the calm before the storm kind of thing, like, but it's just really remarkable that it's so different, and it can be so many different things. It could be like we were saying, it could be nurturing, but then at the same time, it could be like, holy crap, something's gonna happen. So I don't know. I was just thinking that.
So again, I appreciate all of your examples. In particular, I find your comments about hearing impairment interesting because that's one of the things I was thinking about. I thought, well, if silence is noble, does that mean that all deaf people are enlightened because they're in this space of noble silence? But of course, there's all the internal stuff that's going on. And I would anticipate that a silence, if you're deaf, can feel isolating because you're wanting so much to connect with others and not able to do so. So I appreciate your bringing up that example. So I want to do one more little reading. And again, we're going to base this in sound, so we're going to go from sound to what does silence mean. There is this book, this is one of my favorite books, How to Train a Wild Elephant by Jan Choson-Bayes. And it contains examples of mindfulness practices. I think there's like 52 of them in here. It's over 50. So you could do the different mindfulness practice every week if you wanted to. But this one is called Listen to Sounds. Several times a day, stop and just listen. Open your hearing 360 degrees as if your ears were giant radar dishes. Listen to the obvious sounds and the subtle sounds in your body, in the room, in the building, and outside. Listen as if you just landed from a foreign planet and didn't know what was making these sounds. See if you can hear all sounds as music being played just for you. Discoveries. We're continually bathed in sound, even in places we would call quiet, such as libraries or forests. Our ears register all these sounds, but our brain blocks out most of them so that we can concentrate on the important ones: the conversation, the lecture, the radio program, the airplane engine, and is that the baby crying? Research indicates that babies can hear things adults cannot. Their hearing is acute enough to detect the subtle echoes that occur after most sounds. We learn early in life to block these confusing sounds out. Interestingly, African Bushmen retain this ability, probably because they live in the very quiet environment in the desert. Babies also recognize music and the melodic qualities of the voices they heard before the birth. When we begin listening carefully, a new world opens up. Sounds that were annoying become interesting and even amusing when we hear them as some kind of alien music. Background noise moves to the foreground. We discover a lot of noise in our mouth when we eat, especially crunchy food. The neighbor's leaf blower becomes part of the ongoing symphony of sounds. A jackhammer is the percussion section. The hum of the refrigerator unfolds into a tapestry of many subtle high and low notes. Deeper lessons. Listening practice is a potent way to quiet the mind. When we become intrigued by sounds, we want to listen more closely. To listen intently, we have to ask the voices in the mind to be quiet for a while. We have to ask the mind not to name John's old truck or talk about the sounds. He needs a new muffler, but just to be alert and to listen, as if we were hearing each sound for the first time. In fact, we are. Each sound is just that, completely new. Listening is an excellent way to disengage from the endless ruminations of the anxious mind. As soon as you find your mind spinning in a squirrel cage of its own making, stop and listen to the music of the room. When you are frazzled after spending an entire day on your computer, step outside, open your awareness out into the darkness, and listen to the music of the evening. There is a famous koan about sound. A koan is a question for opening the mind into direct experience of deeper reality. The eminent Japanese Zen master Haikunin assigned his students to the koan, "What is the sound of one hand?" It has become trivialized in modern times and incorrectly repeated as, "What is the sound of one hand clapping?" But when it is taken on with all earnestness, it can open the mind to profound listening. So what is the sound of one hand? Reduce this koan to its essence. What is the sound or just sound? When your mind has wandered away down its endless twisting corridors, let this question bring it back here to just here and now. Final words, even in what is called silence, there is sound. To hear such subtle sound, the mind must be very quiet. So thank you for taking this little journey with me today to explore silence and sound. And I hope that you can take a little something away to work on in your everyday life. I would invite you, as you leave today, to just maybe go out into our garden, spend a little quiet time there and see what you can discover. So let's say together the 4 great vows, and then we'll have some announcements. All beings, one body.
All beings, one body.
I vow to liberate.
I vow to liberate.
Blind passions, one root.
Blind passions, one root.
I vow to terminate.
I vow to terminate.
Dharma gates, one mind.
Dharma gates, one mind.
I vow to penetrate.
I vow to penetrate.
The great way of Buddha.
The great way of Buddha.
I vow to realize.
I vow to realize.
So welcome to the Ann Arbor Zen Buddhist Temple, especially to those of you who might be here for the very first time. We just have a couple brief announcements. 4 p.m. service is not being held over the summer, correct?
Resume in September.
It will resume in September. So it's just the 10 a.m. Until September. Also resuming in September will be the family program, which is usually on the second Sunday of every month. So if you have any kids in your life who might be interested in learning a little bit about Buddhism while doing some arts and crafts, something to think about. Let me see, we have so many study groups, including the BIPOC group that meets Saturdays at 3. We also have Recovery Dharma. Will that be today?
Recovery Dharma will be at noon today in the historic temple, the Yellow House right next door.
Noon today, right next door. Let me see here. Our yoga classes will resume also in September. And we will be offering introductory meditation courses beginning September 7th. And if you'd like to stay abreast on all the temple news, I'm just reading off of the flyer here. You can grab a flyer or sign up for our email bulletin, which is a very cool way to stay in touch. Coming up, we have the best event of the year, which Magamak is going to tell us all about.
Yeah, so we have Peace Camp coming up at the end of July, beginning of August, and so the registration for Peace Camp, we got so many people that we had to close the registration for Peace Camp. But when we do Peace Camp, we pack up a whole bunch of stuff and we bring it out from the temple to Camp Talahi, which is about 30 minutes northwest of here. And so we could use some help driving a U-Haul to get the stuff out there and then to get it back. And if you're curious about Peace Camp, this could be an opportunity for you to check it out and see what it's like, and you may choose to attend next year. And so the days when we could use some help would be on Thursday, July 27th in either the afternoon or the evening, on Friday, July 28th during the day, and on Wednesday, August 2nd during the day. So if you're able to help with that, we would really appreciate it. Come and talk to me after the service. Thank you.
Lastly, the temple is supported entirely by your kind donations of time and money. If you'd like to donate your time, we usually have some work practice in the garden after this. Is that the case today?
Not today, but every Saturday from 3 to 5.
Saturdays, 3 to 5. If your mind is quieted by working in the garden, maybe come help with ours. And likewise, there is a fishbowl just in the foyer for monetary donations. So thank you very much.
All right, so please stand and we'll do 3 formal vows together. Our feet in contact with the earth. Listening to the sound of your own breath. Just experiencing this togetherness as we do 3 formal vows. So on the way out of here, help us pick up extra mats and cushions. So we leave the mats and cushions that are touching the carpet, but those that are not, we stack in the corner over by, John Doe can assist with that. And then on this side of the room, I guess we're putting everything over there. And the cushions also on the shelf.